Hi, all. This is Jan of the Jan Files. If you haven't subscribed, please do so by hitting the subscribe button. Also, I want to remind you if you go up to the gear, which is the settings on YouTube, you can scroll down and hit playback speed and put it at 1.25, which will move this along more, quickly versus having to sit and listen to it at a normal speed, but you'll absolutely be able to understand. So that's just a reminder. I'm once again going to focus on Epstein's witnesses, who I believe should be called to the table. Now, I've talked about this before. I've gone into a little depth on some of them. I'm going to repeat some of that information, but I'm going to add a lot of new characters to the cast, so to speak. I'm going to start out with the four assistants. That's something new that I've learned about. And I want to make sure that we start connecting and showing the way these all weave together, because it just sometimes astonishes me. And I also want to be clear that I am not accusing anybody of anything. I am saying, in my opinion, these people should be brought to the table. And if they're not, I won't understand why. Because with these people, we definitely have a different look, right? So if, let's say this is, the prism, right? So if we turn it from this side, somebody might know about that. You turn it from this side, somebody might know about that sometime. And then finally, you're going to get a full picture. And I think that without some of these other people, you're not going to get that, because they were there. They were in the world. And whether they're from law enforcement, whether they're attorneys, or whether they're assistants, they all have different perspectives on what they saw. So, starting again with the assistants, there's four of them. The first one is Sarah Kellen. The second one is Leslie Groff. The third one is Adriana Ross. And the fourth one, which is new to me, is Story Cowles. Now, it seems that all of them were involved in his scheduling, of arranging for things to happen within Epstein's world. Leslie Groff, Sarah Kellen, and Adriana Ross seem to be, at least in terms of what the victims have said, and also the evidence that was collected, to be the three that we should definitely focus on. I believe that we should also take a look at Story Cowles, because he literally visited Epstein in jail in Palm Beach. Well, jail is a very loose word, okay? 130 times, okay? So I don't believe that you can just be in Jeffrey Epstein's world and not understand what was going on, especially when he was in jail. And I think that's a very bullshit description of what he was doing. He was in a very relaxed environment that allowed him to get out of jail 12 hours at a time. He was even able to fly to New York and to visit his house in Palm Beach. The gentlemen the police department who also were supposed to monitor him were required to be in suits. And they also were, the police department was actually referring to him as a client. And before I go any further, I always want to acknowledge this woman who really did the hard work of telling this story. An investigative reporter, Julie K. Brown. And the other person who did so much work, literally in terms of not just writing a book, but he was the attorney who stuck with these women, Bradley Edwards, who stuck with these women for 2 decades. He literally was at the press conference on the Capitol steps. This man is a hero. Okay, Bradley Edwards. So I'm getting my information from the internet, and just doing my own kind of, is so-and-so connected to so-and-so when I do some research. And I've been surprised by what I've come up with. So let me get back. So we're going to talk about Sarah Kellen, Leslie Groff, Adriana Ross, and the man I mentioned, Story Coles, who visited Epstein in jail. Now, Sarah Kellen and Leslie Groff were considered co-conspirators, and they, I think, and Adriana Ross, they were all given in the non-prosecution agreement that was given by Alex Acosta. They were all given federal immunity. That was part of Jeffrey Epstein's deal, right? They were given federal immunity. And the victims have said that all three of these women, not Story, who was a man, but all three of these women participated in the scheduling, the paying, the arranging of travel, all of that with these three women. Sarah Kellen was said to have taken pictures of the girls when they were nude, and before they actually went in, I guess, and serviced Jeffrey. Now, the judge described Sarah Kellen and Leslie Groff as criminally responsible participants. They have never served any time. They have not been criminally charged. And basically, in terms of testimony, that hasn't happened. They've never really been put to have to face questioning, except for Adriana Ross, who some described her as Jeffrey Epstein's partner. They're not talking about romantic partner. They're talking like business partner. That's how they connected to one another. And so that is, there is so much there. And the fact that Adriana Ross said, took the fifth 500 times, like what? What, folks? What? And if they have immunity, they have to testify. See, that's the thing. At least that's my understanding, right? If this immunity actually does, it said federal immunity. So if this immunity actually gives them the ability to testify, I think that's huge. I don't know how you're given immunity and then you don't testify. I don't think that's how it works, but I'm not an attorney. So if anybody wants to enlighten me, please do so. But that's my understanding. So they should definitely be called, as well as Story Coles, okay, because of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein in prison and the 130 times he visited him and pretended, by the way, to be a paralegal. He is not. Okay, but that was the only way he could legitimately get in to spend time with Epstein, which, of course, he was allowed to do. And the whole thing down in Miami Beach with Alex Acosta and also Rick Bradshaw, who was the police chief. No, wait a minute. He was the sheriff of Palm Beach County. Okay, that's Rick Bradshaw. He was instrumental in my opinion, of obstructing the case. Now, there are some heroes, and one of them, who I think also should be called, is Police Chief Michael Reiter. He has longed for this information to come out. I think he has valuable information, I would think. And I know that one of the reasons, according to Julie Brown, that he didn't really want to come out and give her a lot of information was he felt and he hoped that someday that they would investigate this for real, not what they did in Palm Beach, and that they would be brought to justice. So that was one of the reasons why he hadn't come out and said more. So I think he should be given the opportunity to say more. So that's my opinion. Um, Bradshaw was culpable, in my opinion, of trying to slow down or even stop this whole process from happening. And what it ended up, as we all know, is there was a non-prosecution agreement that Jeffrey Epstein ended up with an 18-month sentence, only served 13 months, and most of that he was running around doing whatever he wanted during the day, and also flying to his island and flying to New York. Wait a minute, I may be wrong about the island, but he did fly to New York, and he also was able to go back into his home. Now, so there's also a couple little tidbits here about some of what these women did. So Adriana Ross also was there with a man who, the butler, who's another person who I think should be called, and I'm going to botch his name up, Janusz. Okay, hold on. I don't want to really go into him right now because we'll go into him a little bit later, but I do want to see if I can possibly get his name right. His name was Janusz Banasiak. Okay, let's try. Banasiak. He was Epstein's butler. And during the time that Miami police were coming in they had a search warrant executed to go into Epstein's estate and remove the computers, videos, etc. Adriana and another gentleman, Cornington Janusz, if I'm saying this right, actually went in and removed some of the computers and videos before the police came. So what does that mean? Somebody in the department let him know that they were coming in advance. Adriana helped remove the videos. Do you think she should be called? I think so. Right? So, and, these others, Leslie Groff has never really, her lawyers say, oh, she has nothing to contribute. Baloney. She worked for Epstein for 20 years. Okay, 20 years. How do you work for somebody and not have a sense of what the hell is going on? Because she also scheduled these girls. She scheduled flights and different things and hotels, whatever. She was part of that. And I don't believe that you can do that. Again, my opinion, that you could do all that and not have a better sense of what is happening. So I think all of these women, these three women and Story Coles, should be called and sat down in front of a House committee and speak to what they know. To not do that doesn't mean you're serious. It means you're not serious. Okay? Because these people were there. They're part of the world, right? All part of that world. The modeling world, the Epstein's business world, all of that. And so I think it's absolutely necessary to hear from them. The other people I think that are necessary to hear from, and you may not want to, is okay, let's go to this one. So Eva Anderson, and that's spelled Sson, and Glenn Dubin. So Eva Anderson was Jeffrey Epstein's first known girlfriend from the 80s, almost for 10 years, on and off, from like 81 to 91. They were on and off until she got married in 1994 to Glenn Dubin. Then they actually all became friends and hung out to the point where they would fly on his planes with their kids, etc., etc. Well, Glenn Dubin has been accused by one Jane Doe that I just want to read this right so we can get this right. Oh, here it is. Oh, it was Virginia, sorry. Alleged she was trafficked to Glenn for sex around 2002 at Epstein's Palm Beach home while pregnant Eva, I don't know what her name is, sat nearby. So Okay. Giuffre claimed she massaged both, leading to intercourse with Glenn, who tipped her. Now, they deny this, calling it horrifying and false. Um, Now, there's some other little anecdotes that I don't want to go into. I think though that and only reason because it just doesn't say enough. And I'll give you an example, like their chef, there being the Dubin's chef, and his wife witnessed Epstein bringing a young girl, a 15-year-old girl, and to their home. And so the chef and his wife were very uncomfortable with all of this. But see, like, it's like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means, but that is out there. What is also out there is another victim said that Eva participated in group sex encounters and joining orgies. So again, these are claims. I'm not saying anybody did anything other than this is certainly worthy of pursuing. And the other thing that's fascinating is Epstein's named Eva's daughter, Selena, as a beneficiary, a $50 million trust. This was pre-2019. He could reportedly considered marrying her for tax-free inheritance purposes. So, I do think they should be called, don't you? Glenn Dubin, I don't know if he's retired now, but he was a huge hedge fund dude, right? Highgate Capital. And so very, very, very wealthy, very, very, very powerful. Ava is actually, besides being Epstein's former girlfriend, is a physician. So these people need to be called, as far as I'm concerned. Now, here's the kicker with that, because after he was convicted in 2007 of being a sexual predator in Miami, she literally wrote a letter to his probation officer saying that she would never have a problem with Jeffrey being around her daughters. Okay? Now remember that. After he got out, they invited him to Thanksgiving. Okay? So they spent Thanksgiving with Jeffrey Epstein. That's how close these people were. When the news finally came out, again due to Julie K. Brown, they said, a spokesman said, they were horrified. Okay, so you weren't horrified when he was convicted? You weren't horrified when he was convicted in Miami for being a sexual predator, for being at that point they diminished the charges to sex with a minor or sex with prostitution. I can't remember how it's said. But anyway, so all of a sudden, after all of this, after writing to his probation dude, they're now horrified? Please. I don't know. Just call me skeptical, okay? I think these two people should be called. They work in power circles. There's no question about that. And that's the level of participant in Epstein's world, okay? These were powerful people. So powerful that they screwed with his indictment in Miami. They should have gone after, felony charges, and instead they went after misdemeanor charges. And even the woman, one of the prosecutors, questioned why they were doing that. So did the one of the police officers, who unfortunately is no longer with us, Joe Ricari, didn't understand what was going on, and neither did police chief. Oh my God, there's so many names. Police chief Michael Reiter. Okay. He also questioned what was going on. There was so much political influence within all of this that it's frightening. It is frightening. And this isn't about Democrat and Republican, by the way. Bradshaw was a Democrat. But this is Miami, folks. And I don't think your political affiliation really is meaningful down there. I say that from my own experience. I wasn't accused of something, but one of my friends was. And it was a big deal. And she was on the city council. And they framed her. And made up all this crap. And of course, the DA, Miami DA, didn't care. She was a Democrat. And they prosecuted her. And of course, it was thrown out because supposedly embezzling something. And there was a check that was written that showed she did no such thing. So this is the Miami world. And so, like I said, I don't think this is about Republicans and Democrats. I think this is all about power and influence. And there's something really damn wrong with what happened with this whole Epstein thing and those that participated. So that's why I think that some of the police officers should be called. And again, I want to make clear that Reiter was a good guy, okay? Joe Ricari, who's no longer with us, was a good guy. So this isn't about trying to paint everybody with the same brush. No. There were some good people who tried, but were literally, stopped from doing the right thing. So now, of course, there were attorneys who were representing Epstein. And some quite famous attorneys, by the way. Ken Starr. Remember, he went after Bill Clinton. Went after him and Monica Lewinsky and et cetera, for a blowjob in the Oval Office. A consensual blowjob. Now, I'm not saying it's right. I am not weighing in on that, okay? Ken Starr worked for Epstein. Alan Dershowitz worked for Epstein. Jay Lefkowitz worked for Epstein. Now, this is where it's going to be a little more down in the weeds because I think it's really interesting, and I think you should hear some of this because this is when it starts to really go like this. And I'm going to start with Alan Dershowitz. Litigious Alan Dershowitz. So I'm going to make very clear, I am not accusing Alan of anything, okay? This is my perception, and as far as I know, at least today, we still have free speech. So I'm going to talk about Alan Dershowitz. And I want to, and this, I'm going to have to pick up my papers because there's so much here. And so let's just start out because this is where the connections to Trump start to happen, okay? So, first of all, he was one of the lead counsels for Epstein in the Miami probe. He actually, let me go see, this is why I say, this is more about Dershowitz and Trump. But he was key, as was Lefkowitz, in creating this non-prosecution agreement, which made sure Not only did these women get immunity, but that Jeffrey Epstein was prosecuted for misdemeanors. Now, there were 34 victims in this case, 34 young girls, right? They didn't give a shit. They didn't care what these girls went through. And so Alan Dershowitz, who was close to Epstein and close to Trump, very close to Trump, okay, represented Epstein. He made sure that these girls were not notified of this non-prosecution agreement. They didn't want to tell them. Why? Why would you do that to these victims, to these young girls? Oh, but he participated in it, okay? And if I can't find this really quickly, I probably will stop and come back, but I'm going to try to find this by Julie K. Brown in reference to Dershowitz. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, no, I can't find it quickly, so I will come back to it. Oh, but this did remind me of something else. Anyway, Alan Dershowitz is all over this, okay? He had been accused, and I guess Virginia Giuffre recanted this, but she accused him of getting services from her, and he sued her, and she backed out of that. So I'm just telling you the story as I know it, kind of really general terms, right? But Dershowitz was all over around this. So let me talk about something, but I do want to say something else before I forget. When Jeffrey Epstein was accused the second time, was arrested the second time before he was offed in jail, my opinion, he sent over $350,000 divided between Sarah Kellen and Leslie Groff. He wired them funds. Now, why do we think he did that? $350,000, and one was $100,000, and one was for $250,000. Why do you think he did that? I don't know. I could speculate. He thought they might need lawyers. Or it was just another incentive to stay quiet. I don't know. Okay, this is my speculation. So I just almost forgot to say that. But let's go back to Alan Dershowitz, because here's some just anecdotal evidence about Alan. Okay, he's known Trump for 30 years. Okay, he has more often than not defended Trump. He has said Trump, although he supposedly doesn't have the inner workings of Epstein's world, has had nothing to do with Epstein and these girls. He's got no, he said, well, he saw the evidence, but then he corrects himself. He didn't say all the evidence. And that's also something he does. He says one thing and then comes back and says he didn't say it. Sort of like the Trump syndrome. And he also defended him in the impeachment trial, his first impeachment trial. Now, here's what I find fascinating, and here's a name I certainly have not heard before, and I would assume that other more informed people than me did. And the name is George Nader. George Nader. So let me tell you about George Nader. He is he's alive. He's in jail, but not for Alan Dershowitz's lack of trying to get him a pardon from Trump. Right? Trump tried to Trump turned him down, but there was Alan Dershowitz suggesting that this dude, and this I'm definitely going to read, Nader, was worth, setting free because of his doings within the international world. What was his doings? He is or was a lobbyist and unofficial diplomat who has advised the United Emirates Crown Prince, the Saudi Crown Prince, but he also has a long history of child sex offenses, including convictions in the 1990s for transporting child pornography, a 2003 imprisonment in the Czech Republic for abusing 10 boys, and a 2019-2020 U.S. charges for child sex trafficking, transporting a 14-year-old boy for sex, and possessing child pornography. He's in jail. But it gets better than that. Nader was a key witness in Robert Mueller's 2016 election interference probe, acting as a back channel. Now, this is 2016. We've already known that he has committed pedophilia. We know that he's been charged with it. We know all of that, okay? As would anybody dealing with him, one would hope, right? Nader was a key witness in Robert Mueller's 2016 election interference probe, acting as a back channel between Trump's circle, Jared Kushner, Steve Bannon, and Eric Prince, and Gulf leaders. He facilitated meetings like the 2017 Seychelles summit involving Eric Prince and Russian officials. Now, 2017. So listen to the years here. Alan Dershowitz advocated for Nader's early release in 2020 to aid the United Arab Emirates and Israel diplomacy. Now, the likelihood that he knew Epstein is great. Can I prove it? Can anybody prove it? I certainly can't, but that doesn't mean anything, obviously. But what? He was the conduit between the Trump administration. Are you kidding me? I mean, and then Dershowitz advocated to pardon him, even though he was a pedophile? Folks, I'm sorry. I can't believe that this level of just disgusting denial of the victims of children by Dershowitz and others. Okay? That's my opinion. So, Alan, don't come after me because I do have free speech. But, because he wanted to go after that pickle guy who wouldn't sell him pickles in Martha's Vineyard. So, he's a little litigious, wouldn't you say? Now, I also want to talk about Jay Lefkowitz, which is not as, I don't think, as, interesting as Dershowitz, who I think has a lot to answer for. Julie, what I was looking for earlier was Julie K. Brown said that she wished she had pursued him more in terms of what information he might have or what he did in response to all of this. And there's more information, but we'd be here all day if I try to do everything. Now, I want to talk about Jay. Where's Jay Lefkowitz? Oh, here he is. Jay Lefkowitz, met privately with Acosta in October 2007 to finalize terms, and along with Ken Starr, urged delaying victim notifications until consulting higher Justice Department officials. Why? I'm just going to say why. Additionally, Epstein donated $500,000 to the Ramaz School, don't know if I'm saying it right, an elite Jewish academy in New York, where Lefkowitz's children were students. What was the payment for? I mean, it was just out of the goodness of Jeffrey's heart? You mean he didn't, like, pay him his attorney's fees, or was this for more? I don't know. And again, I'm speculating, and that's all it is. And I think I've covered everybody. Oh God. But I you know what? Every time I look, I see that I know what I forgot to tell you. This is just I don't know, folks. If I wrote this as a novel, people would probably go, what? Nah, this wouldn't happen. All right, so listen to this. The butler, right? And I'm not accusing the butler of anything. I think he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Maybe I'm wrong, but whatever. He testified that he saw, the cash payments, these two young women on their visits, etc. He talked about what I think the environment was like working for Epstein in terms of, don't look people in the eyes. It was very strict and uniform as to what you were to do and how you were to do it. But he also talked about seeing Jean-Luc Brunel there. If you remember who Jean-Luc Brunel was, a pedophile himself, was the one who was in the 60 Minutes. They talked about him in the 60 Minutes video about young women modeling in America and how he was raping them, etc. After that, he came to the States, and Epstein funded, to the tune of $1 million, a new modeling agency. I think it was MC2 Squared, if that's the right name. Anyway, so the butler saw this guy, hanging out about the pool, etc. So he documented that too. But he, let me see. I think I'm going to read this. This is the gentleman I said who was there when they removed the computers. When Adriana Ross, also known as Adriana Muchinska, removed the computers. So he confirmed a lot of the young girls were there, etc. Now this, I got to read you this. Originally from Poland, he was married to Beata Zandanowski during his early time with Epstein. In 2011, he married Rodica Ophelia, but and now her married name Banaskia, who worked as a housekeeper for Ivana Trump until 2014, when Ivana sold her Palm Beach home. His stepdaughter from Ophelia also worked for Ivana. Coincidence? I don't know. I mean, at that point, Ivana wasn't with Trump, but there are accusations, and that's all they are, that Ivana at one point was going around with Ghislaine Maxwell getting girls. Is that real? I don't know. Okay. But I'm just going to put it out there, because at this point, who knows what makes sense, right? Who knows? And, the idea that once again, Kash Patel, in a volatile hearing yesterday, said that there is no there. Okay, it's ridiculous. There is there, and The idea that there's nothing in the files about Trump, which he also said. I mean, this is just all lies from the administration, from Republicans too, who Comer's saying, there's no there. Obviously, they're saying it in a different way, but they're just, completely, one hand saying, oh, we believe the victims, we need them to, we need justice for them, and then saying and lying that there's no evidence that there was any. Oh, that's what he said yesterday at Pat Cash Patel, Looney Tunes, said that there was no evidence of sex trafficking. These women have been very clear that Jeffrey gave them to other men. So that's ludicrous. And anyway, that's my deal for the day. I hope you stay with me. I hope you keep turning to see what I'm commenting on and what homework I've done. I hope this is helpful because I think we need to keep this going. And I've been really distressed given all that stuff, all that's going on about Charlie Kirk and his murder. And now another horrible 13 people were shot in Minneapolis last night, homeless people. Thank you, Brian Kilmeade. There's so much going on, but we cannot lose sight of this because this is for not only these women who went through this, but for our children. If people think they can get away with this, which obviously they do, it's never going to end. Okay? It will never end. So we need to be vigilant. And to also let you know, the next thing I'm going to do as I still weigh in on the Epstein is to look at Project 2025 and see what has been implemented out of that. I want to connect the dots. That's my goal here, to try to connect the dots with information, hopefully facts, but to get you thinking. And I'm dedicated to offering the facts, the truth, and sometimes obviously there's going to be opinion mixed with speculation, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope you will continue to follow me, and I'd love to hear from you. Take care. Bye.